Now we are going to take a look at the Power Query Editor, which allows you more options to modify the data based on need. In the table view, right-click in the table area and select Edit Query to open the Power Query Editor. The view in Power Query Editor will look much like the table view on the previous page. The difference is that Power Query has greater capability in working with the data. Under the Queries section on the left, you are able to click between the different data tables available that have been imported from Smartsheet reports. Under the Query settings, you can click All Properties. Here, you can rename the query aka table. Additionally, you can add a description that could be helpful for a collaborator. I recommend keeping both checkboxes checked. Under the Properties section is the Applied Steps section. Here, you will see a list of the actions and modifications to the table that are being made. This allows you to remove or move the modification steps added. Depending on the need, the list of applied steps could be short or long, depending on the level of modification needed to represent the data as needed. The applied steps list will build as you use the icons above to take specific actions on the data. First, we'll review the key available options for working with the data under the Home tab. There are instances where you might have unnecessary columns in the table that can be removed. By clicking on a column header to highlight the column, you can click the Remove Columns button. From the drop-down, select Remove Columns to remove that column. You can click and highlight multiple columns to remove if desired. Alternatively, you can click to highlight the columns that you would like to keep if there are only a few, and then click the Remove Columns button and select Remove Other Columns. You also have the ability to remove rows that meet certain conditions of the listed options. Remove top rows allows you to remove a defined number of rows from the top. The remove bottom rows is the same concept, only the defined number of rows at the bottom of the table. Remove alternate rows allows you to define the first row to remove and the pattern of row to remove and keep. Remove duplicates is a potentially helpful option depending on the visualization needs. Remove blank rows should be an unlikely option, as the reports created in Smartsheet should be tailored to avoid blank data, but the option is available if need be. Remove errors can be beneficial but should be used with caution. Although removing rows with errors could overcome issues with refreshing or saving the file, the potential for removing needed data that needs the root cause of the error fixed is possible, and therefore could lead to a loss of important project data. In reviewing the data, there are times that sorting the data by a column is helpful. Clicking the column header to highlight the column will allow you to click a sort icon to either sort in ascending or descending order. There are scenarios where you have multiple values in a single cell in the column that need to be parsed into separate columns or new rows. The Use the Split column by delimiter gives that capability, and an example will be shown in a use case later in the lesson. There could be an instance where data from one table needs to be added at the row level of another table. The Merge Queries feature allows you to match two tables on a shared column with matching values called the primary key that will allow you to join the two tables. This feature is more advanced than this current lesson, but I encourage participants to review joining options as there could be a scenario where this feature is beneficial. There can be circumstances where you have two or more reports created in Smartsheet that have the exact same columns, but for a circumstance such as different filtering needs, these reports have to be created separately. If these reports need to be combined in Power BI, that is possible by the Append Queries feature. As long as the column names are exactly the same with the same data types in Smartsheet, then you can combine these tables by this feature. The best practice is to try to avoid this by having all of the proper filtering at the data source, which is the Smartsheet report. The Transform tab has several important features to modify the data table. Just like the data type field shown previously, you are able to adjust the column's data type in the Power Query editor. When clicked onto a column header, you can choose to replace specific values in the column or replace errors. Replacing values allows you to search the column for a specific value and replace with a new defined value. Replace errors is similar as you define what value to replace the error with, but this should be used with caution as there is the possibility that important data is being removed that should have the error resolved rather than being removed by replacing the error value. The pivot column is a more advanced feature that is more advanced than this lesson. Typically, this can be used to take unique values in a column to create new columns for those values. I encourage you to explore the benefits of the pivot column option as you continue working with Power BI. There are times where data that comes from a Smartsheet report, but the format doesn't display as desired. The format feature allows for format changes such as changing the text to all lowercase, all uppercase, capitalizing each word, trimming spaces at the front of the text, cleaning non printable characters, adding a prefix or suffix. Depending on the formatting needs, this is a flexible option to visualize text in a desired format. In the table, you have the ability to filter data from the table. Each column header has the down arrow option that, if clicked, displays options. There is the ability to filter based on text using text filters, where you see the various conditions that can be used to filter certain text. Additionally, there is the ability to uncheck specific values to filter out the specific values themselves. Typically, it would be more scalable from a maintenance perspective if specific text were filtered rather than individual values, but the preference is, of course, to filter as much as possible in the Smartsheet report, aka source data. Power Query Editor also has the ability to add columns to the table. The easy feature available to add a column is the Conditional Column button. Here, a window will display that has an easy to use flow for creating a new conditional column. Here, you can define the new column name and the conditions for the column data. There is an initial if statement where you select a column in the table, define the operator such as equals, and then a value. Under the value, you can type the value, or you can click the Select a Column option to select another column. If the condition that you define is met, then the output as defined will populate the cell of that column. The output can also be a column value as well. Multiple conditions can be added, and this allows for multiple output values based on which condition is met. Clicking the Add Clause button will allow you to add as many conditions as necessary. If none of the conditions defined are met, a default value to be returned can be entered in the Else field. This field can have the value manually entered, or this can also be a value from another column. I recommend using the conditional column as much as possible for the ease of use. For more advanced users, the custom column option is available. Here you have the flexibility to manually create the coding for the custom column formula. This option is more advanced with options than the conditional column format, but this feature does take greater understanding of the formula functions needed. The View tab allows for you to see information that can be helpful in assessing the data, such as in troubleshooting. We'll review the Data Preview section, as this will assist you in understanding the table data. Here, the column distribution will display the number of distinct values, which are different values that appear in a column, and unique values, which are values that only appear once in a column. Here, the column profile will show the distribution of values in a column as well as associated statistics. The most valuable view is the column quality view. When refreshing a file, if errors are encountered on a table, this view can help you review where the error occurs in the table. This view will show the percent of valid values, percent of errors, and percent of empty cells. Under the column header, you will see colored bars that correspond to the dot color for valid, error, and empty.